Episode 11. The Gossip's Warning. They call me a gossip like it's a sin. "Mrs. Klein, you and that tongue," they say, wagging their fingers while leaning in closer. "You really ought to mind your own business." I always smile sweet as pie and say, "Darlin', if everyone minded their own business in this town, we wouldn't have one." My name is Ruth Klein. I have lived on Maple Street for 43 years, in a yellow house with a porch that sags when it rains and a hydrangea bush that blooms blue enough to make strangers slow their cars. I sell pies for church auctions, run the St. Agnes Rummage every October, and I can tell you exactly how long a secret takes to travel from the post office to Dot's Diner on a windy Tuesday. People say I'm nosy. They're right. Nosy keeps a town alive. Nosy is how we know the water's not safe, or the school roof is leaking, or the sheriff's story doesn't add up. Let me tell you something I've learned with age. A gossip is just an archivist without the fancy title. We keep the record the way the town wants to forget it. We're the canary in the mine shaft and the bell that rings when smoke finds the rafters. And lately, I've been ringing myself hoarse. You came for a confession, didn't you? A new piece to fit into the cracked teacup that is our pretty little town. All right, sit down. Keep your voice gentle. You can help me turn the pages. My fingers stiffen when it rains. I keep a notebook, hardcover, floral, the kind you buy when you tell yourself you're going to start writing poetry again. Inside are names and dates and moments people mistake for nothing at all. A light left on too late, a car parked where it doesn't belong, a voice that stops saying good morning. I call it my weather book, because people are weather, foreseeable in seasons, surprising in details, always telling on themselves if you stand on the porch long enough. Last autumn, the weather book started filling too fast. I wrote down the pastor's wife walking across the church lawn at 10:54 p.m. with her hair still damp, a soft smile on her face that didn't belong to sermons. I wrote down the mayor's car idling behind the motel at 1:30, headlights off. I made a note about the banker's tie hanging out of his pocket when he left room 12, and the way his hand trembled when he lit a cigarette, even though his wife swears he quit 10 years back. I wrote Daniel's name, too, the choir director. Bless him and bless the sorrow in his eyes that summer he started parking by the river to stare at the water like it could teach him how to behave. Then came the accident. If you heard it called a tragic car crash, I suppose that's not a lie so much as a bedtime story. We've all told it to ourselves so we could sleep. But I was awake that night. I am awake most nights. Insomnia, the doctor calls it. I call it keeping watch. The cat and I sit at the front window with the lamp turned low and let the town move through us. At 11:05, I saw 2 cruisers take the old service road behind my house toward Highway 9. Only men who know what they're doing take that road. It's pitted like a bad tooth, and the county forgot it on purpose. At 11:19, an unmarked car followed, fast. The kind of fast that says someone is afraid of being late to a story that does not want him. My weather book got 3 lines that night, underlined twice. 11:05 p.m., 2 cruisers, service road. 11:19 p.m., unmarked sedan. 12:08 a.m., ambulance sirens, too late to be useful. In the morning, the sheriff stood at the diner counter. I was 3 stools down with a slice of lemon pie I didn't want and a cup of coffee Dot pours when her hands need something to do. Sheriff Tom said the words like he'd rehearsed them in a mirror. Single vehicle, lost it on the curve. I watched the teen, Amber, the quiet one with the notebook, pour his coffee too full, so he had to lift it careful with both hands. Smart girl. Women like us survive by watching. Now, if you know me, you know I keep to the edges of scenes.
I prefer a good windowsill to center stage. But 2 nights after the funeral, my insomnia took me farther than my porch. It was wind that did it. Wind that shook the hydrangea bush hard enough I worried the few blooms left would snap off. I went outside in my robe with a clothespin to splint the worst stem. You learn tricks, old as I am. And heard something not wind at all. A car door. Soft. Cautious. Guilty. Miller's Motel sits a short walk from my back fence if you cut across the field where boys learn to kiss with their eyes open. The neon M was out again, so the sign read, Illers, which felt right. I followed the noise. Curiosity is a lead rope, and sometimes you have to let it drag you a little. I kept to the trees at the edge of the lot where shadows behave. That's when I saw him. A man at the office door, key in hand that wasn't a motel key. He didn't ring the bell. He didn't knock. He opened the door like he'd paid for the right to be there. Gus keeps his office light on low when he can't sleep, same as I do, so I saw the shapes inside enough to know what I was looking at. He went straight to the counter, reached below, and unlocked a small metal box. No rummaging. No pause. He knew what he wanted. He took out a stack the size of a prayer book, thumb drives in little plastic sleeves, put them in a tote bag with a zipper, relocked the box, and slipped back outside. I'd have known the gait even if I hadn't known the jacket. Men are their shoes and their shoulders. He walked like a man who never feared tripping because the world is taught to catch him. The jacket fit too well for a man who worked with his hands. The car he slid into was a dull gray that never bothered with shine, and the only vanity about it was how invisible it tried to be. I didn't step out. I didn't shout. I'm old, not foolish. I watched him drive toward town with his lights off until the road forced him to behave. Then I turned around slow and went home the long way, through the field, listening to the grass say, hush, hush, hush. In the morning, I wrote it down. 2:14 a.m. Man with key, not Gus, removed a stack of drives. Gray sedan. Left knee favored. It wasn't the first time I'd seen him. People like me notice the ones everyone else trains themselves not to notice. He is the kind of man who stands 3 feet from you and bleeds no sound. He's been at the post office, at the school maintenance store with a box and a clipboard, at the council meeting changing the dead bulb without raising his eyes. You can live an entire life believing uniforms make men honest. I learned better by the time they let me vote. That afternoon at the laundromat, ours is the kind of town where Sunday school teachers still iron pillowcases. I said to Mabel, funny how the motel gets deliveries after midnight. Mabel squinted and said, Gus always did his best work at night, and we laughed so hard our baskets shook. Laughter lets a clue pass without sticking to your tongue. I didn't say the rest because sometimes you keep a thing to yourself to test its weight. The next week, the weather book got new ink faster than my pen liked. Anonymous envelopes, notes with block letters and no kindness. People who used to wave at me crossed the street as if my eyes could spread something. I brought a peach cobbler to the mayor's wife after she sprained her wrist and watched her flinch when the oven door squealed, as if guilt is noise you can hear. The teacher, Claire Dotson, came by my rummage table and handled a stack of old picture frames like she was looking for one that could swallow her. And the teen slipped a folded page into my palm without looking up. She said, "For your files," and kept walking. It was a photocopy of a diary page with times and names that lined up with my own, and at the bottom she'd written, "We remember you, too." I remember everything. That's my curse and my contribution. 2 Thursdays after the motel sighting, my mailbox held nothing at all. Not a bill, not a catalog, not even that ridiculous coupon for pizza shaped like a football. But when I lifted the little red flag to make sure it hadn't rusted in place, I felt something taped to the underside. Old tape, clever hands, I worked it free with my nails, and there in the sun of my front yard, I held a thumb drive in a plastic bag with masking tape on it, written in black marker, H12. Check-in.
Room 12. Hanson. Banker in a borrowed name. I am not the kind of woman who owns a computer. Mine is a typewriter in the kitchen that clatters like a cheerful horse. So I took the drive to the library, asked Eleanor if the back computer was free, and watched her pupils sharpen like points. "You all right, Ruth?" she asked, too careful. "Just making a postcard," I lied. We gossip, we lie, we also pray while we're doing both. I watched that footage with my mouth pressed shut. Timestamp. Door opens. Harold Jenkins steps in with a woman whose coat tries too hard. They kiss like a dare, then like a habit. The angle is a ceiling corner pretending to be a smoke detector. It sees more than God on a Wednesday. I did not print it. I did not copy it. I pressed my fingers to the plastic bag and whispered, "Why me?" to whatever kind of saint listens from inside circuitry. When I got home, I slipped the drive into an envelope, sealed it, and wrote on the front, "Insurance." I put it under the false bottom in the drawer where I keep my husband's medals and the first tooth each of my boys lost. They are men now, one in Chicago, one in Tucson. They call on Sundays. I tell them about the hydrangeas and leave out the part where I watch the town decide who gets to be ruined next. You'd think I'd feel powerful. I felt tired. Secrets gain weight when you carry them alone. The first attempt on my notebook came 2 days later when I was at the church labeling boxes, decoys and candles, and Pastor James pretended to help by lifting one thing and putting it back down. He asked after my health. He has never asked after my health in 20 years. I said, "Fit as a fiddle with a cracked peg," and he smiled like he understood the instrument and not the warning. When I came home, the back door wasn't locked the way I lock it. I lock with the key turned left until its size. Whoever had come before me turned it right and walked away. Inside, nothing out of place, except the weather book, which I do not keep on the coffee table because I am not a rookie. It sleeps on a high shelf behind a row of encyclopedias no one opens anymore. Now it lay on the table, centered, a bookmark I did not own sticking out like a tongue. I picked it up with both hands, like you lift a baby after someone else holds it wrong, and opened to the mark. The page was the Motel. Time, jacket, left knee, gray sedan, and the pencil at the end of the line was darker than I had left it, as if a stranger had traced it to see how it fit on his own bones. There was a note beneath the book, folded once. "People get confused, Mrs. Klein," it said in neat, ordinary letters. "We're here to help everyone remember the right amount. No signature, no threat, just a statement like the weather." I made tea. I do that when the world tries to move me. Tea makes everything slower, which is the best way to see. I carried the cup to the porch, watched a squirrel interrogate my bird feeder, and made a decision. If they wanted to make me forget, I would remember more. I started carrying a small notebook in my apron, the way waitresses keep their checks. Short notes, fast ones. Deputy Harris limps when he's tired. Mayor's wife buys bleach and flowers and pears. School custodian's van parked at the motel 3 afternoons running. I copied the notes into the weather book at night with dates and times and little arrows that point where the eye forgets to look. I left my blinds at the angle that lets you see out without catching yourself looking. I learned the sound of the gray sedan's engine, a muted, expensive purr that tries to be nothing at all and is therefore a something all its own. I also started talking. Gossips talk. It is our method and our mercy. I told Mabel about the new maintenance fellow I'd seen at the motel. I told Dot that the mayor seemed tired these days and one worries about his health, which is a sentence that lets a town ask its own questions. I told Amber at the diner that some people hide in plain sight by doing small, kind things loudly. She raised one eyebrow the way only smart girls can and said, "Like replacing light bulbs no one remembers burning out?" "Exactly like that," I said, and slid a peppermint across the counter.
For your records. The second attempt on my notebook was not subtle. It came on a rain night with thunder the shape of old furniture. I was in bed with the radio low, ball game, score tied, when the back door sighed. I know that sound as well as my own. I slid my feet into my slippers and took the cane my husband carved me the summer the porch steps learned to argue with my knees. I walked into the hallway without turning on a light, because light makes you legible. A shadow stood at my bookcase. He had one hand on the encyclopedia row ready to reach. "Most thieves take television sets," I said, and my voice did not shake. "What a disappointment you must be to your profession." He stilled. People always freeze when they are seen. Doesn't matter if they're 15 or 50. Then he did something that took me years to learn how to fear. He laughed softly, a friendly sound. "Evening, Mrs. Klein," he said. "You should lock your doors." "I did," I said. "You should mind your manners." "Just checking you're safe," he said. "Storm like this, you never know what might blow loose." I took a single step, cane tapping the floor like punctuation. "Put my encyclopedia back where you found it and leave my house." He did. He slid the book back. He stepped away as if distance made politeness true. He went out the back without another word. When I locked the door behind him, I looked at the key in my hand and wondered how many of these town doors open because people like him forget we own them. I changed my lock the next morning. The locksmith said, "New keycard system, Mrs. Klein? Never seen one like it on a house." I said, "Then you'll remember it," and tipped him $5 and a slice of blueberry pie. 2 days later, I found a gift on my porch. Brown paper tied with twine. No note. Inside, another thumb drive, this one labeled in that same plain hand, HWY 9X'd. I stood there with the paper damp against my fingers and felt the old engine of my heart change gears. The cat rubbed my shin like she was reminding me to stay on the earth.
I didn't take this one to the library. I took it to Amber. "Why me?" she asked, when I tapped the diner counter with my cane and slid the bag across. The diner was slow. A Tuesday after lunch, pies cooling, the mayor's pastry untouched. "Because you remember," I said, "and because he already told you he remembers you. That evens the field." She looked at me with those quick, fierce eyes and nodded once. "Okay." "Careful," I said. "A small town will let you do a brave thing exactly once before it calls you reckless for trying again." That night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat at the window with the cat and watched the street learn to be empty. At 1:11 a.m., a gray sedan eased by, slow as a finger on a lip. I raised my hand and wiggled my fingers like a grandmother waving from a porch swing. Let him see I see him. Let him catalog me too. There's power in being the sort of woman men mistake for furniture. Furniture doesn't tell stories, but I do. Morning brought company I did not invite. Sheriff Tom on my porch, hat in hand, smile ironed. "Mrs. Klein," he said, "you're always up early." "And you're always late for the truth," I said, and opened the screen because my mother raised me to be polite to liars. He asked about the storm, about my locks, about whether I'd noticed anything unusual. Men like him ask questions as if the answers belonged to them already. I said, "The hydrangeas held," and sipped my coffee loud enough to be disrespectful. He glanced around, searching for my weather book with his eyes. My house smiled back at him with its impeccable dust. "One more thing," he said at the door, as if it were an afterthought he'd been practicing since breakfast. "If you hear rumors about footage from Highway 9, best ignore them. Folks like to play telephone with grief." "Telephone is a children's game," I said. "This town prefers microphones." "Ruth," he said, using my first name like he'd bought it, "do the sensible thing." "I am," I said. "I'm talking." He left with his hat still in his hand. Politeness can be a threat when wielded properly. When he was halfway down the walk, I called after him, "Nice new shoes, Sheriff. No shine to them at all." He didn't turn around. Men don't when the light hits them wrong. I suppose this is the part where I tell you who the collector is. The man with the key and the tote bag. The one who keeps our sins on thumb drives and feeds them back to us through mail slots like communion we didn't consent to. I could give you a name, but names are doors. Once you open them, you can't unsee the house inside. And I am not done looking. I will give you the outline instead, and you can put your thumb against it and see if it fits anyone you shake hands with on Sundays. He is everywhere you don't bother to see. He signs for packages nobody claims. He changes bulbs that did not burn out. He knows which doors stick and who forgets to latch theirs. He parks where employees park. He wears nothing memorable. He is the sound of a rag on a counter, the click of a pen with no ink, the soft exhale of a man who thinks the story will do what he tells it. He is "we" in his notes, because men like that are never alone. They are committees wearing one face. And yes, he left my house the first night with manners. That's the one thing you should fear most. A brute breaks. A gentleman rearranges. My weather book grows heavier. I've added tabs, colored dots, a key I tape to the inside cover like a legend on a map. Blue for money, green for love, red for law, yellow for church, black for death, silver for cameras. The silver dots multiply like fish when no one is counting. You want my warning? Here it is. A town can survive 1,000 little betrayals because we are good at making casseroles for the funerals. What a town cannot survive is a man who decides he is the keeper of the record and everyone else is the kept. When one person holds the angles, truth stops being a direction and becomes a weapon. He is not cleaning the town, he is arranging it. And I do not intend to be arranged. Last night, while I wrote this, someone rang my bell and ran. Children do that in June, not in September, not on a Tuesday with rain like thread. I opened the door to a box on the mat. I did not bring it inside. I slid it open with my key right there on the porch because I wanted the sky to see. Inside was my weather book. My book. The one he had touched. The bookmark I didn't own was still in it, but now it was a photograph. Me, through my front window, bent over the kitchen table, pen in hand. Underneath, in that same neat, ordinary hand, archivist. We prefer the word archivist, too. I laughed. I did. A sharp little sound that scared the cat back under the chair. Then I set the book on the porch rail, took a picture of it with my old flip phone, because even grandmothers can learn tricks, and sent the picture to Amber with a message that said, "Come by after school. Bring your diary. Let's make a library." Because here's the thing about collectors. They like being the only ones. The way you break a net is with more nets. The way you beat a camera is with 100 eyes and 10,000 words. If he wants to arrange us, we will alphabetize ourselves and see how he likes the index. I am old enough to know that courage is just fear with its hair combed. I am also old enough to know the difference between silence and peace. So I'm combing my hair, I'm setting my porch light bright, I'm baking 2 pies instead of 1, and I'm putting a card table out front with a sign, "Take what you need, leave what you know." You'd be amazed what people will set down when you give them a plate and a listening chair. Before you go, I'll give you one last thing to carry to whatever neighbor you love most. Inside the weather book, on the newest page, I wrote a sentence in ink so thick it will bleed to the next sheet. I saw him leave the motel with a bag of tapes. And below it, if I go missing, ask who keeps the keys. I am a gossip.
That's what they call me when I ring the bell and nobody wants to hear it. But you came to my porch, didn't you? You wanted the record the way it really reads. Here it is. Here I am. And if you see a gray sedan pass your house tonight, slow, quiet, polite, wave like a grandmother. Let him know we see him. Let him wonder which of us is going to speak next. My money's on the nurse, or the deputy, or the pastor's own boy. But it doesn't matter who goes first. What matters is that we don't stop. Because once a town learns how to confess, a collector with a tote bag is just a man out of room. And my warning is simple. He's running out of room.